Hi, I'm here at Keyhole Conversations today, and I'm going to read from my novel Family History, and it's kind of a suspense novel, and it's set in Kansas in 1985, so I'm going to just get started here. June 1985. Crystal Sands Marshall pounded on the locked door for the third time. Iris didn't answer, didn't even acknowledge Crystal's presence with a peek between the curtains. Crystal slammed her fist against the heavy wood door and shouted, "You're not keeping me out, so you might as well open the door." Still no response. Crystal glanced at her white high heels. Hoping they wouldn't get ruined, she stepped carefully off the cement steps onto the rain-soaked ground. Even though it was mid-afternoon, the blazing June sun hadn't evaporated the moisture from last night's downpour. Balancing on the balls of her feet to keep her heels from sinking into the soft earth, she teetered toward the kitchen window. Damp knee-high weeds caught on the full skirt of her white dress. She batted at them with her hands, stifling a curse before it escaped her lips. Uncouth language on her part would be a win for Iris, who lived to torment Crystal. Still, Iris always answered the door, even on the rare occasion when Crystal showed up unexpectedly. Always. So why was today different? Crystal reached the side of the house and gave a frustrated tug on her skirt to dislodge a nettle from the material. The threads pulled, leaving a run. The dress was ruined, and it was all Iris's fault. Crystal cupped her face with her hands, pressed them against the grimy pane, and scanned the dim room, muttering, ticking off her sister's faults: obstinate, arbitrary, hateful, controlling, eccentric, bad-tempered. Then her gaze locked on Iris's still form on the floor. Iris? The name came out low, scratchy, not much louder than a whisper. Iris! She managed to shout this time and prayed Iris could hear her. Her sister didn't move. It was half a mile to the nearest neighbor and nearly a mile to town. There was no time to go for help. Crystal flailed through the weeds until she found a large rock. She hurried back to the window with it, not wanting to chance throwing the rock and having flying glass hit Iris. Crystal turned her face away and smashed the stone against the window pane. The glass shattered. Pieces fell inside, clattering on the linoleum-covered floor. Jagged edges of glass were still lodged in the window frame. "I'm coming, Iris," she called, while knocking the glass fragments out with the rock. "You'll be all right." This was taking too long. Finally, the edge of the frame was clear of glass. Crystal slipped her arm through the opening and stretched until her fingers found the metal lock between the two sections of window. It wouldn't turn. Sweat beaded on her forehead. She reached again. Nothing. The sweat stung her eyes. She swiped at it with the back of her hand and glanced at Iris. Even from across the room, she could see the heavy rise and fall of Iris's chest and hear her labored breathing. Sobbing, Crystal put all her strength into one last try. The lock gave suddenly. Her hand slipped and her wrist grazed a shard of glass. She felt a sting and cried out. Blood oozed from the cut. Crystal touched the wound to her lips. Her stomach lurched at the taste of her blood. She fought against rising nausea as she pushed at the top of the window frame. It didn't move. It was stuck, swollen from the recent rain. She slammed her palms against one side and then the other, pushing until the frame budged and inched up. When the opening was finally wide enough, she squeezed her upper body through it, only to be stopped by the broken glass littering the floor. She grabbed the tied-back curtain and jerked. Rod and all crashed to the floor. Dust rose, stinging her eyes and choking her. She coughed and cleared her throat. "Hang on, Iris, I'm almost in." She wrapped the curtain around the rod and swept the glass to one side before gingerly lowering her hands to the floor and wriggling through the opening, her dress scraping against the window frame. She pushed to her knees and was halfway to a standing position when the acrid odor of Iris's vomit sent her stomach reeling. She pressed her arms against her abdomen and scurried to Iris's side. Iris's eyes were glassy, fixed blankly on some distant point. Papa's eyes had looked the same when he'd had his stroke. Crystal moved her hand across Iris's field of vision and called her name again. No response. Just like Papa, and he had died before morning. Iris, with all her eccentricities, was all the family Crystal had left. She tentatively touched her sister's forehead with her fingertips. "Hang on. Please hang on. I'm getting help." She stood and backed toward the telephone, afraid leaving Iris's side would break their connection. "I'm right here," she said, as she dialed 911. A man answered. "What's your emergency?" "I think my sister's had a stroke. I need an ambulance." She was talking through a fog, her voice not quite real as she answered questions about Iris's condition and the location of the house. "An ambulance is on the way." The man's voice was firm and calm. "Now I'm going to tell you what to do until help gets there." She concentrated on following directions, removed Iris's dentures, found a dishcloth, rolled it and placed it inside the corner of her sister's mouth. Turning Iris proved difficult. She tugged and pushed until she got her on her side. The long braids Iris usually wore pinned around her head like a crown had come undone. One braid hung across her neck. Crystal pushed it back and saw the top button of Iris's dress was torn loose. She leaned forward and opened the collar wider. Deep vertical scratches crisscrossed the red welts encircling her neck. "Who did this to you, Iris?" "You didn't." She stopped, choking on her fears. She took Iris's hand in hers, gently opened the clutched fingers, and removed a ring of keys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the reading from the first chapter of Family History, and if you did, I hope you'll go over to Amazon.com. The book is available on Kindle, and there should be a link below this video. So if you liked it, go on over and sample some more. Thank you, and that's it for Keyhole Conversations.